what does the win against Lafayette tell you about your 2021 team? And what's your take on your turnback players who have not played in years?
Well, I think it's just invaluable to get to play games. If you're looking at specifically from a football standpoint, you just can't. It's hard to. You go and practice and you try to create game situations and rehearse and do things over and over and over and try to say, here's a 2-minute drill, here's a 3rd and 7 play, here's when the ball's over on the left hash from the minus 42 on a 2nd and 7, and yet to do it in a game, I mean, there are just so many new learning experiences that I think are only helpful as we go forward, and they will be, for this season. And I think for the guys that are younger guys, that just playing that game will help them 2 years from now, too, or a year from now. To answer your question in regards to the turnbacks, it was great for them too. I mean, they really hadn't played a game, and those guys had been, almost 20 months. Over 20 months since they played. So I think it's natural to have a few butterflies whenever you play a game or whatever you want to call that, even for guys that maybe had some background in the sport.
So you have a young O-line. You have a young O-line. And what do you think about him now?
Well, I think we'll change as we go. It's pretty fluid. We'll get better and better. I mean, just, as you look, they are exceptionally well coached by Lobo. They are eager, and we'll make improvement over the long haul there. But, for those guys to get game snaps, I think will be really, really helpful in the long haul.
So how do you feel about playing a game on 9/11 when both service academies will be there?
We played one 11 years ago on the same date. Played here at home against BYU, and every day you have a gigantic place in your heart for those that serve. Those are our service members, but certainly the first responders that we have in this great country. And you play a game on 9/11. My goodness, it resonates to no end.
And where were you on 9/11?
I was at Wake Forest University, game planning, and one of our graduate assistants walked into the office and said, "Hey, there's something that's going on here." And I don't think we had any idea just the magnitude of what that really meant when he first said it. So, I think we can all, if we're trying to look around this room, everybody's, I'm not saying old, nobody's old in here, but everybody's got enough age to know, probably can recall where they were and just the feelings that there were when that occurred.
Follow up to that, Coach. Your players, though, majority of them were either 0, 1, or 2. Is that crazy to think that these guys probably have no recollection of that day whatsoever?
Well, if you would have asked, when we were in college, you would have said, "Hey, you remember when the president was assassinated in November of 1963 when we weren't born?" Or you talk to older, other generations, they might say, "All right, December 7th, 1941." There have been certain events in the history of our country. I think especially here over the last 80 years, you say, "Whoa!" On that date, I think we all could say we know truly the meaning of what that particular event and for what really the way it altered and changed even the course of our country. Going through airport security is real. In the ways that you realize now when you board a plane, as far as access for the pilots, and certainly it's changed some things procedurally, yet understandably so.
On the football field, Lakota Wills, any update if he's going to be able to play this week at all?
No update, no sir.
Okay. As well as Brad Roberts had a nice little quote at the end of end of Lafayette's game. He said about you, because we were asked about the chanting in the locker room of your name. He said he's a great coach. He knows what he's doing. He knows the character he wants all of us to be, and he's just a good guy to look up to. When you hear that from a player, how does that help your team be able to buy in more in terms of knowing that they respect you so much that they want to do everything they can to make sure that they succeed your expectations?
Well, our job, what I will do, I'm gonna give our guys everything I possibly can, in the development that they make as football players, but well beyond that too. I mean, all of our coaches, that's what we're committed to doing, and that's not just because it's our job as it is that we want to. That's where our heart is, and our approach, we're not a CEO. We weren't CEOs. I mean, we aren't hiding behind a tie. I mean, when we coach, we coach. I mean, it's not a case where at practice where we stand back out of the action. I mean, we're going to coach a position, and we're going to be in every single meeting, and we're going to sit in every special teams meeting, and that's the way we're going to do it. I just feel like you owe that to your guys. Just like when you're home, you owe it to your kids during that time too.
Final question for you is Navy. For a football team, what do they bring to the table? What are you guys preparing for this week in terms of just game planning for them?
You look at them, they've played fantastic defense. They certainly did during the second half of last year. And pretty much all those guys are back. I think 7 of their top 8 tacklers are back. And then you can tell offensively, I mean, even the other day, I mean, just the way they move the football at will this past Saturday. And, you look in between the 20s, I mean, they marched and made a ton of first downs. And I don't have the final numbers in front of me, but they had no problem moving the football. 3 really highly talented quarterbacks, each that bring a little bit different dimension. And certainly we're well into our planning because it changed a little bit some of the things that you may do on defense too.
Navy defensively, last couple of years it's kind of started with Diego Fago, one of their top tacklers, if not the top tackler on the team. What makes him so effective getting to the ball?
Jesse's played a ton of football. I mean, I don't know how many, he's probably started at least 25. Well, he's definitely started over 25 games. And he's been able to stack on top of each other a bunch of great seasons. Not good seasons, but great seasons. He's large. He moves well. You love instincts in a football player, and he's loaded with them.
Going back to 9/11 when you were at Wake, when that happened in the ensuing days, how did that change what you guys did as a coaching staff, your role as a coach, football aside, just with young men who maybe aren't comprehending the magnitude of that day? What did you guys do as a coaching staff that might have been different than just getting ready for a game?
I just think each moment that you have, I mean, you kind of think, I think COVID had an impact on all of us. Certainly you think of 9/11. I had a sister that she's a graduate of the academy, and then she cross-commissioned in the Army. They paid for her to go to optometry school, and she lived in Hoboken, New Jersey, and she took the path underneath the Hudson River every day to go to school in downtown New York City, and had just left there to go take her first assignment in the Army. And, you realize life's pretty short, so we better go make the most of it. We better go live, and whenever you do something, do it with all your heart.
Coach, the first defensive play against Lafayette, DeMonte got the sack. I guess it's kind of a two-part question here. Could you, other than an interception or a fumble return for a touchdown, could you have imagined a better start defensively? And then what does he mean to this defense?
He an amazing work ethic, just his maturity, his focus, his intensity, and the passion for everything that he does. I mean, here's a guy that was a leader of everything that went on with our summer engineering program here at the Air Force Academy. The number of tackles that he had 2 years ago, back in 2019, We won 11 games, but just his leadership, the principles that he has as a human being, and he's just somebody that's highly, highly respected.
And then as far as, what he does on the field, what separates him maybe from other players on the team? Does he study even harder to make sure he knows exactly where to be? Or what do you think led to him making such an impact on that first play of the season?
Well, I'll say this. Nobody puts in more time in regards to extra study of film than he does. He'll frequently, he gets his dinner and he goes right into the film room there from about 7 to who knows how late, sometimes in the evenings. And to be able to do that and still be an engineering major at the Air Force Academy, it tells you he has his priorities in order. But more than anything else, he's got a way where he can, again, be dialed in and really focus on whatever it is that he goes to attack.
And I noticed you guys stayed ahead of the chains quite a bit in that first game. I mean, how important is that for the offense to make sure they don't get in those 3rd and long situations?
No question, it helps. And I think in the first half we did. Probably not quite as much, those first few series. In the second half, there early on that initial drive, you had a chop block. And then, in some of the follow-on series too. But in the first half, you're right. Yes, sir.
Hey, Coach. How are you?
Good.
Good. Every year, when we talk to the players before a Navy or Army week, we know the significance of the CIC trophy. We know that this is something you could hang a season on, and it means so much to your guys. Have you noticed a difference with a game like this in week 2? Obviously, everyone's excited to get back to gameplay, but has that been a noticeable difference because of the urgency of it all?
I think it could be. I think where you really sense it, once you get more into the padded practices, which begin today, and I'm sure we will.
Also, I got to talk about the uniforms you guys are going to be rocking because they're pretty sweet. Is that something you pay attention to? Because I know the players love it.
Well, it's okay to have a little bit of fun, right? I mean, things tend to be, and everything else you do here at the academy tends how you wear your uniform up on the hill and the whole bit. I think we've done some phenomenally neat things to recognize, the Thunderbirds, the A-10s with the shark tooth helmets, the Spectres. I mean, you can go back through it, the C-17s. Unbelievable what we did last year, as far as the Red Tails and the heritage of the Tuskegee Airmen. And this year, when you think of the B-52s, and it's so ironic, in the sense that, what really kind of brought that conflict to a conclusion was Operation Linebacker, that kind of drove both sides to the chords that wrapped up, a good chunk of the Vietnam conflict, and, at a time where we just finished another one, in another area of the world.
Does that go into any game plan discussion with the team? I'm sure it does, but do you guys really talk about what you are representing with those uniforms every year when you do rock these?
Well, I mean, it may not necessarily be a formal discourse, but it's our guys know. I mean, so much of the knowledge that you're required to digest while you're here at the Air Force Academy, from the day that you arrive, they're going to realize, hey, what happened during that, during those years, from the start of the Gulf of Tonkin all the way through, the departure out of Saigon. I mean, they got a pretty good idea on that, even though they weren't born yet.
And then, I mean, this is an obvious one, but how bad do you guys want that trophy back at Air Force?
You got to play well. I think so much of what you got to do, I mean, you got to execute at a real high level.
And speaking of that, how much do you want to see that for guys like DeMonte and for that senior class that hasn't had a chance to experience? And I realize they can't win it this week, but this is obviously the first leg of it.
It is. Yeah, it is the first leg. And, it's a neat part of these games, I think, that there's, you play games that have and it's blocking and tackling. I think you realize that, but there tends to be some significance. When you play Colorado State, because there's a little something there. You play Hawaii sometimes, in certain years there's something there. There's definitely something there whenever you play academy games too.
And then having this game on CBS and, making the effort to move it to 9/11 to, obviously this is an event outside of football too. Has that helped you in the past when you have had national broadcasts? There have been a lot of eyeballs. Can you think of any specific examples, either on the recruiting trail or in any other circumstance, that actually pays real dividends?
Yeah, I don't know how you measure, but yeah, you would. I think, inevitably you have, golly, you think of those years where there tend to be a few more looks. You're right, and I think everybody's got CBS. You know where to find CBS. I mean, here in Colorado Springs, we know where Channel 11 is. I mean, so yes, sir. To answer your question, I don't know how to necessarily pinpoint, how much impact that it truly has, but it has to. You think back, golly, the years. I remember in 2007 we played on NBC and we played Notre Dame and we won. And that helped too, but I mean, just playing on NBC, that was a big deal. You think of the years, we played on ESPN, and just nationally how much that meant to help in recruiting, and in this case, being with CBS, most certainly.
And then I know we're running late, but Kyle Patterson's coming in, and he's one as a recruit. He was a big get. When you kind of envisioned what he could become at that point, is he there, and what do you think?
Kyle keeps getting better and better. He has good size. I think he, you always start from the ground up. The footwork part of it, he's improved a great deal. That includes at the top of breaks and routes. Just when it comes to his feet and his hand placement on blocks. And we line him up in a number of positions. He's in there at a unit spot. He's detached wide. He's flexed, within 5 yards of the tackle, and handles that quite well. And he's a good football player that gets better and better as time goes, too.
Hey, DeMonte. Tyler Bolden, Fox 21. First defensive play for you guys in that game against Lafayette. I mean, what did you see on that led to you getting the sack? How pumped were you to get that? And then could you have imagined a better start other than a turnover as well?
So that was crazy. I was not expecting that at all. We ended up coming out with the blitz, and for some reason the running back totally did not pick me up. And it looked like he was trying to run a screen in film, but like him and another guy doubled up on the same route, so I think it was just a miscue. And then, that's a good way to start a game off. That would start off some energy. And I was very pumped after that. It gave me a lot of reassurance in my shoulder and how it feels. And, sometimes we were going through and we're practicing with these guys that step so fast and move so fast, you never know how game speed's going to be. And that was just a confidence booster for me.
Coach was mentioning how your want to prepare for these games is pretty unrivaled. I mean, how much pride do you take in that, and what do you think is your most important part with this team? Is it your leadership? Is it your ability to play on the field, or how would you describe yourself out there?
Shoot. For me, preparation is everything. If you fail to prepare, then you're going to fail in general. There's some saying, I forgot what it is right now, but I take a lot of pride in preparing, just because every team's different. The coaches, they see something, but it's different than if I see it and I can see the cue and see the alignment and then know, okay, this is coming out now. It takes – people know me, I don't watch football outside of football. It's just – to me it's boring and there's like no purpose behind it. So I spend a lot of my time watching film. My role on the team – it's a good question. I don't know. I think I'm consistent. I think that's just the best way to put it. I've always been the same person, more vocal now that I'm in a super senior role. But I think for me, the thing I add most to the team is my consistency and being able to say, like, this is how we've done it. It's how we've always done it. And also not being super afraid to venture outside of the box if something's not working.
And final one for you, when you're not playing, when you're not in class, what do you like to do in your downtime?
I play a lot of video games. I play so many video games. I just downloaded Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask on my 3DS XL. I've been playing that a lot. Other than that, I just like sitting down and not doing anything because stuff just moves so fast nowadays. And I made a joke in class today. I was just like sitting in my room and staring at a wall. But I mean, we have all this stuff to look at. I don't necessarily stare at a wall, but I'll just stare at the mountains and just chill out.
Sounds good to me. All right, I wish I had time to do that. All right, for you, September 11th, this game on Saturday, it has a lot of pomp and circumstance behind it. Of course, the 20th year since the attacks in the United States. I'm guessing you were 1 or 2 years old when that happened. Okay, so you have no recollection of this. But when was the first moment that you realized, wow, this is a big event in the United States, and understood the magnitude of it?
Shoot, that's a good question too. I'd probably say when I came to the academy. You see those torch runs. They do like a little thing where they run a torch around the tees over 24 hours. I think freshman year really sat in, maybe prep school year too, but not as much. I think once you realize the amount of pain that went into this event and the amount that people are still like going through it, that's when you start to realize it. And this, honestly, it's been gradients of it. It's been steps. So it started freshman year, and then just recently it started. Next goes to commitment, when we actually like locked into our 5 years. And then for me, it really hit home when everyone started graduating and commissioning, and it's like, dang, these people are actually like got a job, and they actually have a role to fill. And that's kind of what I'm sitting with right now.
100%. As for the game itself, Navy, one of your rivals, you guys haven't won the CIC in a little bit. I know that's a goal. Trey has said that from the beginning. JJ said that from the beginning. What would it mean to this 2019, the turnback class for you guys to be able to bring home that trophy?
Shoot, really it would be redemption because, class of 21, I think we were, if not the only class or one of the few classes that went through and didn't win the CIC. So I know for our boys in our group chat and all that stuff, it would be a huge win for them. And it's always big winning against service academies, especially at home, because that's a really, really hard game to play. It's just a respect thing, and it's just like at the end of the day, it's not necessarily who was a better team, but who stuck it out the longest, and it was who was able to be consistent in their game plan. So,
in that group chat, did you guys talk about, how it felt to be back out there for that first game against Lafayette and just the first game action you guys had in a while?
It was actually hilarious. So, obviously, like in the game when we were preparing, we don't have our phones, but, we'll check the group chat after, and like people are just spazzing out on it and just sending all caps, a bunch of memes, and it's great to see those guys and see their reactions to it. It just gives me energy. It makes me happy because it's just a lot of those guys want to be with us, but circumstances, and they just couldn't. So,
final question for you is this: you heard Coach talking about it. Navy can move that ball, especially the offense, the 2-quarterback system that they're running right now. When you look at them, I'm guessing you've looked at the tape already. According to Coach, you probably have. What do you see from them? What do you have to do to slow them down? I know they moved the ball, but they just didn't finish last week.
Sure can. They can definitely move the ball. Service Academy football. It depends on what they come out in. They can come out with a traditional triple option. They can come out in that posse look. That kind of changes the realms a little bit because with the posse look, we're thinking more zone scheme, more outside run. We're going to get triple option as well. But slowing down the quarterback, that's just going to come down to discipline. Fitting your gaps, playing your assignment, and not trying to make yourself bigger than what you are. Like each person, even though that at that time, like it would be opposite flow. The fullback comes out the backside. That guy needs to sit, and he's out of the play completely. But that one-off chance that it's opposite flow, fullback out the backside, runs a wheel, but he's hitting it for 40 yards. And that's a explosive play, especially in triple option football.
Hey, DeMonte. So obviously you just talked about it, the CSE trophy. We know year in, year out, this means so much to you guys, and it's such a huge rivalry between Army and Navy. To have a game like this in week 2, have you noticed a difference in the urgency in training camp leading up to this point? Is it something you feel? I know you guys just want to play, but hey, it's a big one, week 2.
It's, I don't know. It's either that or I've been out of it for too long. We came back and they were like getting after us, but that just might have been like just getting us ready to, play at a high level. I didn't see too much changing with training camp because normally we hit Army and Navy a good amount. We do good on good all the time. I saw this guy a lot preparing for that. But no, I don't think too much changed in preparation for this game.
All right, and I got to talk about the uniforms you guys are rocking this weekend because they're pretty sweet. I mean, every year the Air Power Legacy Series, top notch. What do you think about this year's?
I'm super biased. Linebacker 2, that's very, very cool. I like this uniform a lot. It's probably top 2 for me. Shark Tooth was really cool. That A10 is like unbeatable, but the simplicity of this one, even it's like some simple. The helmet is simple, but it's doing a lot, and the jersey's also kind of doing a lot, but they just all comes together, and it's just crazy seeing it, and it's super cool, super cool.
I think swag in college football is so fun to talk about, so I'm going to ask you one more question about it. Is this something that you guys wait for them to unveil, or do they bring it by? Do they ask your opinions on it, or is it just a nice little surprise for you?
Normally it's a nice surprise. We see concepts of it. Like, we kind of know a little bit. Like, they keep it under wraps a good amount. But we see concepts of it. We kind of see the helmet, what they're thinking about before they actually unveil it. Like, we had the helmets for the drop happen. And I just so happened to go back in the training room and see it and see the jerseys. I was like, oh, that's cool. Sick. And then the drop happened. I was like, oh, well, that's going to be really cool.
Is there any pressure with those? I don't think you guys have ever lost while wearing one of these Air Power Legacy, unless they did last year. Okay.
I would
Never
say
mind.
there's not pressure until you said that. But.
We've talked about your future a lot with engineering or the NFL. Is coaching something you might consider?
College, no. Well, maybe. I feel like I'm gonna be a jerk. I couldn't coach middle school, couldn't coach Pee Wee because it's just too serious. And I'm a big technique guy, so it would be high school and college most likely if I do. But I haven't really thought about that too much. If I'm missing the game a lot, maybe. It's always nice to pass on some knowledge.
Well, do you think you're going to be able to turn it off? I mean, with as in-depth as you're studying and knowing about this, how do you just leave it behind?
I don't know yet. We're going to have to figure that one out. Hopefully I can turn it off because, there's so many people that just wish they could play another down. I'm probably going to be one of them, and that's with any sport. I talked to a bunch of my guys, 21ers, that are just wishing to be here and just wanting to play. To turn it off or to try, I think a lot of it's just that raw, uncultured aggression that you just don't get anywhere else. For me, I'm probably going to get into running a lot or jiu-jitsu or something just to, keep the aggression high and then, not freak out on other people when I have it too high. But I don't know. I'm going to have to figure that one out.
And when you talk to the other guys from 21, do you guys relive that Navy game, that loss at Navy at all, that last drive? Is there anything that eats at you from not quite finishing that game?
Yes, actually. We don't relive it too much. I think we relive it more with the 2020 guys. We talk about that a lot. And, I remember that last drive. I remember that one bomb that he threw. We had him on the 10 or 15 or something, threw a bomb. Then he also, I think he scrambled or something. But then I remember that last play, the one where we should have got the fumble, wasn't hustling to the ball, totally on us, loaf. But I remember the last play, and we had a slant, a reduction to the field. And I remember it because I remember, the whole entire game I was listening to their calls, and I kind of knew what they were going to say or something. They were say Chicago or something. And I was like, okay, bet. This is probably coming to the left. Cap, being the crazy man he was, glass cannon, ready to wreck his body for a football, was about to just jump over the line and make a play. And I was just thinking, we really should be making this a boundary reduction. And then sure enough, quarterback follow to the boundary. Sucks at the time, it just happened, And then those are a couple of things I'm going to be cued into in this game because it's my third year playing Navy. Just kind of know a little bit of the scheme. I'm going to probably cheat a little bit. But.
And then do you remember after that game what must have been said? Or you guys didn't lose again that season. Obviously, that was a low point in the season, but you made something out of it. Do you remember any of those specifics as to how that happened?
Not really. I think the guys just got together. It wasn't nothing. I don't think anything was really said. There was just this low pitch of just like disappointment, and that's not us. And we knew that was a really good team, and we knew that, especially the longer you play, you know that these close games come down to 3 plays. And we just were, rest of the year, we were just like, no, we're going to ride the wave. We know that it comes down to 3 plays. We're going to make sure this play is straight. And then that's just how we went as a defense, and just made sure our communication was at a high level and that our hustle was at a high level, and we just called each other out when it wasn't.
And in fall camp, given the fact that Navy comes after an FCS team, were you able to put a little more into Navy than you typically would when you play them, in early October?
You mean this year? I don't really think so. Well, we always do 3 weeks of like triple option football, just playing on against each other, good on good, just seeing who can play, who's came back ready to play. We hit Lafayette pretty hard though. Like I remember prepping them for a week and a half, which normally like a FCS school we do like a week. But our coaches do a really good job of like sprinkling in random plays from each team we play, so we can see like their top formations and their top play choices and things like that. So I think they're kind of sprinkling it in and kind of showing us what was up, but it wasn't super blatant.
Okay. And then the rotation they had at linebacker last week, is that something you anticipate going forward, or was that kind of opening week?
I'm not sure. It was interesting, and it was good though, because it's an anomaly for 2 linebackers to play the entire season, especially 12 games, let alone 13. So having a good rotation and knowing who you're playing with, even if it's not the number 1 guy or the number 2 guy, like it was me and Alec a couple of times, it was me and TD a couple of times, it was Blood and TD and Blood and Alec, and that confidence in your partner and that high level of communication, I think it was good, and I think that's where they're going for mainly. We tested out our speed unit a good amount, and I'm not in the coach's heads or anything like that, but I'm sure they're scheming to see who fits in what box and where they need to be playing.
Are you pumped for this week?
I am. Got a lot of juices flowing. I mean, getting up for a Service Academy game, it's always exciting. And especially all the turnback people coming back, I know they're all excited to get revenge on Navy.
Was there any difference in the offseason knowing that this game was coming right out of the gates in week 2?
I don't think it really was. Looking at us going through spring ball and fall camp, it was mainly focusing on what we can do to improve ourselves, rather than taking it day by day instead of looking ahead in the weeks and who we're playing against.
And then I got to ask about the jerseys because they're pretty sweet. Is that something you look forward to every year like we do, the unveiling of the Air Power Legacy Series uniforms?
I think it's always special for the players to get rewarded for just playing football. So when the uniforms came out, I was definitely excited to rock those, especially on the 9/11 game.
What do you think about the ones that are honoring the B-52s?
I think they're pretty sweet. I think compared to the other service academies, that ours is the coolest. So.
Kyle, I'm guessing you guys looked at the tape from Lafayette. Third quarter lull. Well, did you guys pinpoint what happened there in that third quarter?
I think it was just a lack of focus. I know for me, like I went to the locker room. I was like, all right, we're up 28-14. But I know our coaches, they came out and they said, don't let off the gas. That's not us. We were getting tripped off on the sideline. We just had a couple mental mistakes, a couple penalties that set us back. And to establish drives, you can't have those penalties. So we tried to eliminate those, and in the fourth quarter it happened. We score again and win the game.
I'll ask the same question I asked DeMonte. For you, probably really young, 1 or 2 years old when 9/11 happened, but when was the first time you realized the significance of the day and what actually happened?
I remember I was in high school, and I never really took a chance to stop and think about it because I was like, 9/11, I was 1 year old, like you were saying. I never really knew how it impacted my family or the country. So I went and sat down with my parents, asked them where they were, how it affected them, and that really impacted me having their stories and how it affected them growing up.
I know it's a big rivalry game, it's a big September 11th game, but the fact that you're on national television on CBS, Can this be a statement game for you guys? Like, hey, we're Air Force, we're good this year, and we're going to be not only competing for the CIC, but possibly a bowl game as well?
100%. I think teams know we've been good, and to be able to show that on national television would be even more of an impact and give us especially more confidence in going forward in the season.
Looking at Navy as a whole, as a defense, someone that you guys competed against last year here at Falcon Stadium, but to go on the road, in this rivalry in the past couple times, the home team has won. So how do we change that this year, especially going up against a top defense like Navy?
Like I said earlier, it's just focusing on us this week. As DeMonte Macy was saying, we go good on good a lot because our offense resembles similarities between each other. So being able to have that competition makes the games just a little bit easier whenever we get to game time.
And then final question, thoughts on the offensive line? I know it was the first time that all 5 guys lined up against each other, played some meaningful snaps with each other. Just thoughts on how they did.
I have a lot of respect for those guys. Day in and day out, we're grinding on the field. It's always, I know for me, sophomore year, it was really weird. My first game, I had a lot of nerves, and the second game came out even better. So I have a lot of respect for those guys, and I hope next game that they're going to come back even stronger than they were.
When you had that conversation with your family about 9/11, do you remember some of the details they shared with you?
So my mom, I think she was in schooling at the time, and she was living at home in Wisconsin. And my grandparents, she called my mom and was like, "You need to get home right now. Like something's happening in New York." So they rushed home. They're just watching TV, just glued to it, and just like everyone else in America, they're just wondering what was happening. And then when it came out, it was a terrorist attack that kind of shook the whole nation like it did for them.
What kind of excitement is there for you? Obviously, last week's game plan was probably a little vanilla, as it usually is against an FCS team. And now you've got everybody back. David Cormier's here. Everybody's here. And you get to put it all out there. For you, part of this offense, is there an excitement that comes with that?
I think there is. For me, last year, I feel like we have more weapons this year with, like you said, DC, Micah Davis, Zeke Daniels coming back, Brad Roberts as fullback. We have a lot of weapons that we can use, and I feel like if we establish a run game really early against Navy, that we'll be able to open the ball up and make more big plays.
And you've played in 2 Service Academy games, but do you feel like this is going to be different because it's going to be full? There's all the pageantry that comes with it. Do you feel like there's something you haven't really seen even though you've played in 2 of them?
Yeah. For me, I haven't traveled to Navy yet, so this is going to be my first time. So playing in the humidity and just the atmosphere that it holds will be a new culture shock for me. And since last year we weren't allowed to have fans, I know a noise problem might be a little bit of an issue, so I know our coaches are going to implement that in our practices. So hopefully the game's not too big and we can just fall back on what we know.
If we can talk real quick about your high school experience, when did Air Force first jump on the radar? Because obviously you had some really big schools after you. When did this kind of become an option?
Honestly, the military was honestly the last place that I wanted to go. Through my recruitment, I took the latest time to sign, so I did it in April. And talking to my dad, I was like, I don't know where to go. I love Washington, I love Oregon State, and I love the Air Force, but I don't know. And he sat me down, we made a pros and cons list, and it really showed me that the life after football with the Air Force is just far above anything else that you can get from another school.
Now, even though he had played in the NFL, I mean, is that something, does he know how rare that is? How was he able to share that perspective?
He was talking with him. He told me that the one regret that he had was wish that he had a education to fall back on, because you play at the top level NFL, it ends for everyone. Everyone has a limited number of steps, and when football's over, you have to have something to fall back on, and he wished that was education. So that was his wisdom that he gave to me when I'm going through the whole recruitment process.
And every cadet athlete I've ever talked to says there's some point in their first 2 years that they have doubts. It's hard here, and they always think about what else they could be doing. Because you were so highly recruited, was that harder for you because that door was open and you could have transferred and gone somewhere else?
Yeah, I mean, as you mature, my freshman year, I was like, why am I here? Going through boot camp, stuff like that. I was kind of ungrateful for the opportunity I had coming here. And now maturing, I committed this summer. I have much more of respect for what the Air Force holds, and kind of maturity that like I know where I'm going in my life and know what I want to do.
Okay. And did you have to call Nick Saban and say, no, I'm not going to Alabama, I'm going to Air Force?
No, I kind of just signed the deal. I told the tight ends coach, but I don't want to talk to him directly.